Hey there, buddy, Pal here, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be doing a Let's Talk about Dark Souls 2. Maybe a little confusing, why are we talking about Dark Souls 2, seeing footage of Titanfall and everything, and why isn't this a Let's Look At? Well, as I said before, I don't have any way of capturing footage for Dark Souls 2, and I'm not going to take somebody else's footage and then do my voiceover over it. I'm not going to show you trailers and voice over that. And rather than put this over top of Dark Souls 1 footage, I have plenty of Dark Souls 1 footage on my channel already. Let's go ahead and throw some Titanfall footage up there and talk over that. I'm also going to try to keep this shorter. This is like my 5th time trying to make this, as I keep going far too in depth. I keep saying way more than I actually want to, and it starts to borderline on a tutorial series rather than just an opinions piece. So I'm going to try and keep this shorter, hopefully down to about 30 minutes or so, and we're going to watch some Titanfall as we go over it. I also want to stress, before we jump into too much, that this is going to be my opinion of what I've experienced in the first 16 hours of the game, across the first 6 bosses, and about 6 different environments. 6 or 7 different environments, and nothing more. And keep in mind, I am not the most hardcore fan of the game. I've thoroughly love the game. It's one of my top 5, well, Dark Souls 1 is one of my top 5 favorite games of all times, maybe even top 3. But I was never a perfectionist in the game, so some of the smaller changes that other people might have a big problem with, I will miss, and some of the bigger complexities of the changes I may also miss. So keep that in mind on these opinions. Let's go ahead and get into it. So I am, like I said, I'm about 16 hours into the game. I've killed 6 bosses, I've found a 7th, and I've seen about 5 different environments across about 12 different zones. Let me explain that. So in Dark Souls 1, I consider like a zone. If you look at it, you have Darkroot Basin, Darkroot Garden, and Darkroot Forest. All of them are a similar environment, but they're 3 different zones. So that's what I mean. I've seen about 5 different environments, and I've seen about 10 to 12 different zones within those environments. From what I've gathered, and I've been trying to keep the blinders on, I haven't checked anything, but I heard that the game is running most people on average about 80 hours. The quickest people that are focusing on getting through it fast are getting done around the 60-hour period the first time through. 60 to 70 hours, and the slow people, or those that aren't good at the game, or those that are trying to 100% everything, are getting through somewhere around the 90 to 100 hour mark. So on average, we're talking about 80 hours of gameplay. And that puts me somewhere around 1/5 of the way through the game. Not quite a quarter. And that first 1/5 of the game has been overall quite enjoyable. I've had a few issues that I dislike. There's been a few just questionable, silly design decisions that I've seen. There's also been a few questionable, that could be poor decisions, poor design, or just bugs that I've seen. Now, overall, though, I've been enjoying the game quite a bit. These are minor things. Some of it might just be me needing to learn the game more. Now, first, the PS3 version, that's what I'm running on. I'm running the PS3. I would have preferred to play with a 360 controller. I prefer the 360 controller, but I don't have Xbox Live. I haven't had it in about a year, so I went with PS3 version in order to be able to play online without having to pay for 45 days of Xbox Live when I'm going to get the PC version. So this is going to be the PS3 version. On the PS3, so far the game has been running very well. I've had a few little slowdowns. It tends to slow down a few frames when it goes to save. Also, if you're in a room with a whole bunch of boxes and you go rolling through those boxes, you get a little bit of a slowdown. Just if there's a whole bunch of particles or objects on the screen. But I've not come across any type of zones that is like Blighttown was on the consoles, where the entire zone just tanks the system overall. It seems to be fairly well optimized. Now, there's been no big graphic step up or anything. There seems to be a bit better lighting. The shadow system seems to be a little bit better, and the water effects seem to be a little bit better. But one game does not look drastically better than the other. Now, the big concern I think everyone had opinions about was From Software themselves came out and said they were making the game more accessible. And that concerned a lot of people, and with good reason. We've had many game developers come out and say, you know what, we're making this game more accessible, and what they end up doing is they strip out a lot of the complexity and they make the game just a shell of what it used to be so that people can get into it a bit easier. And people were concerned that they were going to do this with Dark Souls 2, and by stripping out the complexity, they were going to make the combat easy. So far, in my experience, that is not what they've done at all. In fact, the combat may be tougher, though this may be some of those poor decisions I'll talk about later on. I've died a lot more to trash, at least what would be considered the easier trash, in Dark Souls 2 than I ever did in Dark Souls 1, even on a drunken night of playing when I'm playing terribly. Some of the trash is really rough that I've come across so far. Some rooms are just questionably designed in terms of what they've put inside of them, and so forth. Now, what they did do in order to simplify, and a brief backstory, I don't think I've talked about this before, but when I started making this, my original walkthrough series, I'd been playing Dark Souls 2 again for about 6 months. Well, back 6 months. So 6 months ago is when I first started picking up Dark Souls 1 again. And then after I was about 3/4 of the way through, and I felt I had a pretty good bearing, that's when I started making the walkthrough series. Before this, I had actually tried to play the game once or twice. At least once. I think I might have tried to play it twice. And I kept running into the same wall. Basically what would happen was, I'd make it through the Undead Asylum without much trouble, I'd get to the main area, and I never saw the path that led up towards the Taurus Demon. The only path I could ever find was either the one that went down to New Londo Ruins with a bunch of ghosts that I couldn't harm, or the graveyard with a bunch of skeletons that I could harm, but holy crap, I was doing less than 10% of their health with a swing, and that was the small skeletons, the regular ones. And this drove me away from the game quite quickly. And that was part of the reason I decided to make my original walkthrough series, is once I saw a Let's Play of the game, and I saw that there was another path that went up and got going, I'm like, holy crap, now it's not easy, but it's so much easier when you're fighting things in the order you're supposed to kind of be fighting them. This is how they've made the game more accessible. You're less likely, right off the bat, to end up in a zone you're really not supposed to be. So the main game revolves around a new Firelink Shrine, which is Majula, something like that. I forget. You guys know me, I'm terrible with names. And this new shrine, at least that I've discovered, has 4 paths branching off of it. 2 of the paths right off the bat are locked down. One is soft locked, meaning that in order to get down and access this, you need to buy an item that requires 13,500 souls, and you have to have enough HP. Basically, it's a fall. You have to jump down this pit, and if you don't have enough HP and this ring, you're going to die. And once you get that enough HP and you buy that ring for 13 grand, you can then access a 3rd path. There's a 4th path I still haven't figured out that is locked off. So out of these 2 paths that are available to you right from the very beginning, one of them is, both of them are doable by brand new players that have never played the game. One of them is a little bit tougher than the other, and it's quite notable when you get there, as one of them has these medium-height giants. I don't know what I call them. They're kind of statues. They're kind of like the Forest Guardians from Dark Souls 1, but a bit more rounded than tall. And these guys are, I don't know, say about 15 feet tall with a big sword, big shield, and you come around a corner, and there's one just standing on this platform telling you to bring it. And then if you go the other way, there is some just standard hollow men you can fight. And very quickly, it's like, well, this is the way the game wants me to go for the easiest route through. You can go the other way, and it's actually, those guys are not nearly as tough as they seem, but it'll direct brand new players the way that the game flows in terms of difficulty, which the first game did not do. Now, that does mean that first 3 hours or so of the game, it takes you about, if you do the tutorial, just run it, you'll get through the tutorial in about 5 minutes. Then, if you focus on actually playing the tutorial, it'll take about 30 minutes. Once you get to Majula and start playing out, it takes about an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending on how quick you play, before you can actually open up and get to the point where you start getting to zones you're not supposed to be. It took me about 2.5 hours before I ran into a boss that I was like, oh boy, I'm not supposed to be here. So the game does open up within, say, 3 hours for the advanced player that wants it. The game will open up and let you go and attack that tougher difficulty relatively soon. Not right off the bat. You're not going to be going down and killing what's Pinwheel and getting the flame right from the start. At least not that I've found. Maybe this will happen. Maybe I just haven't found it. But instead, you're going to be focused on one of these two paths that are doable. That is how they've done approachability. I'm not quite sure they did enough, but we will see. I think that for the average person, the game is still not going to be overly approachable in what it did. It's kind of, it found a middle ground. It's better than it was, but it's still, boy, it's tough. All of that, though, I mean, it's minor things. If you were worried about the game becoming simplified or easy, it really hasn't. You're just on a little bit more of a linear path for the first 3 hours of the game, and then it opens up pretty quickly after that. As for the combat and everything, the combat is where I do have a little bit of an issue, and this is what I was getting at before. Basically, the combat, I don't know if they've screwed something up. Maybe I just need to get better at it. There have been some minor changes to the combat, and it could just be me. So let's not blame the game yet, but let's talk about what I've been experiencing. Basically, what I have seen is some of the hit detection seems to be a bit off from the first game. The game, it just doesn't feel quite as polished as Dark Souls did. And for example, when I'm blocking an enemy that is attacking me, I'll have plenty of chances where clearly that swing would have collided with me, but my shield blocked it and I didn't take any damage from it. But the guy's attack just continues right on going as if my shield, it never bounced off my shield. Now, I'm kind of thinking that it only happens when they're two-handing their weapons or using a heavier weapon. And we saw this in Dark Souls 1 on certain bosses where they would go through their attack sequence, and even if you blocked every single attack, they would just continue their attack sequence and keep bouncing along and everything. So maybe it's I don't have enough stamina, or maybe I don't have enough what's the ability, not stagger, but stability. Maybe I need more stability. But I'm having even just the Hollow Men, where they'll come in and they'll swing their sword with two hands, they'll hit my shield, it doesn't register the impact, and then they will go ahead and they'll continue their attack. Well, my mind coming from Dark Souls 1 is, as soon as I see that sword and I know it hit my shield, I drop my shield and I go to attack. And I keep finding out that I'm attacking these guys and they're still in mid-swing, and they come right back up, and as soon as I drop my shield, they hit me, and now they're hitting me rather than me hitting them. And that's been frustrating me. Now, it may just be lack of polish in the combat system, or it may be that when you're two-handing, in order to make two-handing more balanced, hitting a shield with two-handers doesn't interrupt you quite as much. Could have been balanced system. We'll see as it plays out a little bit more. I'm also noticing that you get staggered much easier. And basically, if you're fighting a group of enemies, and that's what they've done, a lot of groups of enemies, gone are the days of fighting 1 or 2 Hollow Men. You now fight Hollow Men in groups of 3 to 5 on a regular basis. And these guys will be, you'll have some with two-handed weapons, you'll have some with one-handed weapons, and what happened is, there was always in the game a little bit of a brief. When you got hit, there was like a half to a sort of quarter-second window where you were kind of a little off balance, and then you could roll or you could get your shield back up. This isn't the case anymore. If you take a hit, it staggers you for more like a half to a full second, where you can't pull your shield up. So if an enemy starts off into a chain of attacks that is moderately quick, say less than a second between each swing, they're going to be able to just kind of stun lock you in this position if you don't have your shield up. And combine that with the fact that they're all coming in groups, and you'll have like a group of 5 guys in front of you, and you can't, it's almost impossible to get them all where there's a window where you can attack 1 or 2 at a time without the other ones hitting you, and as soon as they hit you, you're kind of this staggered, and now all 4 of them are hitting you, and that's where a lot of my deaths have come from. And it's actually a little frustrating. and it might just be my skill or whatever. But that little hesitation, like you can't even roll to get away from it. Normally you take that hit, and then you could get your roll off and you roll back or whatever, and you'd miss the last 2 or 3 swings. Nope, you're kind of stuck in place there. I'm getting a bit better at this, but there are some rooms that I've come across. There's one room in particular that I remember seeing that just seems poorly designed. It has 5 guys in it, and like 2 of them have shields, and the other 3 are two-handed weapons. And you're in this little narrow courtyard, and there's almost no way to fight 1 or 2 of them at a time, and they all come at the same time. And this is relatively early in the game. Alright. Let's just blame it on me, but I have some concerns about the combat. Outside of that, though, the combat has been improved a good bit. Your attacks do seem to come quicker. Even on heavier swords, I'm running a two-handed bastard sword, and when I do tell it to attack, it doesn't. The wind up and the telegraph of my attack is much quicker than it used to be. Whereas the telegraph, for like the Zweelander is super long. You can see it coming a mile away. What they've done is, rather than the initial swing taking a long time, the time between when your swing finishes and when you can start your next swing takes a long time. So no, I think what'll happen is strength weapons will be more useful in PvP now, as it'll be much tougher for the enemy to get out of that swing. They won't be able to roll around you because of the slow swing. And if you do connect, since you're going to stagger them, you'll then have a chance to follow up and put them into a chain of staggers. It should be fun. It should work. We'll see how it plays out. And apparently the more strength you have, the quicker that wind-up is, and the less time down between. So, which makes sense. The stronger the person, the faster they can wield a big, heavy, two-handed weapon. And that seems like it could be a good bit of fun as we go forward. The dual-wielding system is quite nice. You can really dish out a lot of DPS. This will probably be a favorite of the real experts in the game. It's way above my skill level, as you don't have much of a chance. As I was saying before, once you take damage, you're kind of in that little stun lock. So if you take any damage, you're going to be in trouble when you're dual wielding. So you must be very good with your rolls. You must know your windows. But if you do catch an open window, you can really, really tear somebody apart real quick. So it's a high risk, high reward. Archery is improved, but it's nothing spectacular, where you can now move a little bit, I would say at about 1/3 of your normal speed, with your bow out and drawn, and this is both auto-targeted and manually targeted. So if you're manually drawing the bow and you have the crosshairs up, you can still move around at, again, sub-half speed. I'd say about 1/3 speed. You can also fire off much quicker when when auto-targeting the enemy. You can fire off rounds in a relatively quick succession, allowing you to pick enemies off as they're approaching. I still don't see it being a viable primary weapon, a bow or a crossbow, but it is a bit better than it was. Crossbows, I still can't figure out how to auto-target or manually target them. I'm not sure if that came in. I know there was talk they were going to allow you to manually target it, but I just don't see it. Maybe I just haven't figured out how to do it. It definitely doesn't work the same way as the standard bow. Magic, this is a weird one. I think overall it is improved, but it's hard to say. I haven't gone far enough down the magic tree to really tell. I've got like 3 spells and such. But they've seemed to have toned down the actual damage of the magic. Instead of magic being a big nuke that you save and you use on the bosses or a real tough section, instead they're now, each magic spell is a bit weaker, at least early on, but you can get consumables that'll allow you to use more of them before you run out. So you can eat these herbs that'll restore some of your charges to your magic spells. And so you can now run magic pretty much as your primary attack. And then when you get low, rather than have to run to a bonfire, just go ahead and you eat some of these herbs, and now you have full charges again and you can continue on. So rather than be a big single-use nuke, they're now more of a regular-use ability, at least for the magic spell, the primary stuff. The pyromancy spells, they've taken a noticeable hit. That's the one I have used quite a bit. The fireball is not almost pathetic what it is, but you can use a whole heck of a lot more of them than you used to be able to, and you also get a lot more attunement slots. Not right off the bat, you have to unlock them, but I want to say you maxed out at 6 or 7 attunement slots. You now get about 10 attunement slots when you're fully maxed out. So all of that is pretty good. I don't have any major problems with it either way. Other than that, let's see, I don't like the new leveling system. Not that anything's wrong with, well, it just annoys me. So you go back to Majul in order to level. There's an NPC similar to Demon Souls that you talk to level. The thing that I don't get about it is, and part of this is just a problem with the PS3 version and those 45-second load times, and that's, if you can get to any bonfire, you can now teleport to any other bonfire you've unlocked. You don't have to wait for a Lord's Vessel or halfway through the game. You can just instantly teleport. So it seems silly, like, if I can automatically, if I'm at a bonfire, why do I have to teleport, go through a load, talk to a lady, wait 30 seconds for her to talk, level up, turn around, sit back down at the bonfire, teleport back to where I was, wait for the 45 seconds to load, and then I can continue on. I don't see it gaining anything. I don't see it adding any depth. I don't see... It just seems like an excess step that has me confused. Not a huge problem, a minor issue that I'm a little confused by. There's also a new durability system. This I don't like. So now weapons... most weapons have somewhere between like 50 and 70 durability. And the durability ticks off much, much quicker than it used to. I would say on average, most items have durability of around 60. And the game has been balanced where when you leave one bonfire, your durability will be down to sub a quarter or about 10% by the time you make it either to the boss after that bonfire or the next bonfire. And so your weapons are always kind of wearing down very quickly. But what they've done is you no longer need to go to a blacksmith or have a repair box to repair your weapons. Just the normal durability damage is instantly repaired whenever you rest at a bonfire. But if you break your weapon, then you need to go to a blacksmith and have them repair it, or maybe there might be repair boxes later on. I haven't found one yet. You can repair it yourself. This is it's just a frustration. I've never been a fan in any game, be it an MMO, be it whatever you consider Dark Souls, an action RPG that's not a, what it's action third person, whatever you want to label it as. I've just never been a fan of durability systems, especially ones that require you going to a repair vendor in order to fix. It feels unnecessary to me. Now, what I have discovered is, I think what they want you to do, they've given us another weapon slot, so instead of just 2 right-hand weapon slots, you now have 3, is they want you to run 2 primary weapons plus then like a talisman or whatever for your casting. And this way, if a weapon gets broken or low, you can just switch to the next weapon without having to access your menu. And it does work. I found out the hard way. I went into a boss fight, and when I came out, the boss, or I went into the boss fight and had the boss pretty much dead to rights. He was down to about 20%. I was probably going to kill him, and my weapon broke. I had the attack pattern down, but my weapon went from hitting for about 120 to hitting for about 12. And then I was done. Like, what do? I tried to get another weapon equipped, and it just didn't work, and he stomped my face and everything. And this was how I figured out, alright, I gotta equip another item in that other weapon slot, or another weapon in that other weapon slot, and switch them in and out. I found that I'm running 2 weapons that play off each other. I suppose I could run 2 claymores. Instead, I'm running 1 claymore, or I'm running 1 bastard sword and 1 rapier. So I have my heavier weapon that I use on lighter targets, and then I have my piercing weapon that I use on heavier targets or faster targets. And this has worked fairly well. I can keep up. It just seems like an unnecessary system that I'm not a fan of. Other than that, yeah, I, I'm talking a lot of bad about it. The combat is not bad. It's different enough that you have to kind of unlearn some of Dark Souls and relearn some of Dark Souls 2, is what I'm experiencing. Towards the end, I got used to, okay, I can't just block and then attack. They're still going to be attacking, or I have to evaluate, does this guy have a one-hander or two-hander? Basically, you have to watch for that knockback stagger effect from them blocking. If you don't get that knockback stagger effect, then don't lower your shield. It's a little frustration, but it is what it is. Other than that, the new hollowing system, this is a plus. This really is. People might not like it. Well, I think most people will like this. So in Dark Souls, there really wasn't any punishment for running hollow. Like, okay, if you ran hollow, you could not summon in friendlies, you couldn't summon friendly NPCs that be with bosses. You also couldn't kindle bonfires. But that was really the only downfall, and you weren't going to get invaded. If that could be a downfall or a positive, depending on how you look at it. But your actual class, it didn't change how the game played out combat-wise at all. Now, in Demon Souls, they might have gone a bit too extreme, and I think that's what they figured out. In Demon Souls, when you died, when you were at hollow form, you were at 50% durability or 50% health the entire time. Well, now they've done a 10% system for 5 different steps. So each time you die, you become partly hollowed, and you lose 10% of your maximum health. I think it's 10%. It might be more like about 7. And that'll stack up to 5 times where you're at 50% health. At which point you can then use a human effigy, or you can actually use the human effigy whenever you want to restore your humanity. And this will restore your health back to the maximum amount. Now, it's not going to heal you. It's not like using a humanity that, it could have been used as a quick health potion if need to be. No, it's not that. It'll just allow your health to be refueled all the way. And it works just fine. I do like that it puts incentive into making sure that you're in human form. But if you die once or twice, going in with 10 or 20% less health is not the end of the world. It'll still work. I do like that you don't have to go back to the bonfires to go back to human form. If you're getting close to a boss and you want to just go ahead and summon some friends in to help, you can just right there pop it and then go ahead and fight the boss. There's no returning back. The healing system's been changed. Basically, Estus Flasks are far rarer now. Estus Flasks, you start off with, when you first initially get it, you just get 1. And then you'll go ahead and you'll get 2 or 3. Right now my guy at 16 hours has 6 of them. They're designed just to be used in combat. Instead, there's another item that drops. There's these, what are they? Human soul, heart, human souls? Human shards. Human shards. I forget what they're called. And these are consumables, kind of HOTS that you use outside of combat. You can use them in combat, but since they're hot over time, they're very dangerous. And they come in several different flavors. But basically, you carry some of these around on you, and when you're out of combat, if you're low on health, you consume one of them. That'll heal you up and everything. And then when you're in combat, you use your instead the Estus Flasks. And it works. It takes a little getting used to. I felt like there was a lot more times where I was running around low health that I wouldn't been in the regular game if I had had my 20 Estus Flasks or my 10 Estus Flasks. But whatever, it is what it is. And it's fine. What did I miss? I get that, hit that. Oh, the vendor items and the respawning mobs. So I believe they're trying to force people to go ahead and play New Game Plus a lot more than they did originally. For the most part, in the regular Dark Souls, once people hit around soul level 100, they would just stay there. They would never move on to New Game Plus, because that's where a lot of the PvP happened. At that point, they could go around and kill every boss except for Gwyn, because that would automatically force them into New Game Plus. They could kill every boss except for Gwyn, and just max out gear, do this, max out weapons, without increasing their soul level, so they were still able to PvP and have some of this awesome gear. What they've done, and don't quote me on this, at least in the first 15 hours, this is what it seems like. They have added in a system where mobs only spawn, I think, 10 times, it might be 12 times. So if you've killed a certain mob 10 times, he stops respawning. And so you can clear out an entire zone where there's no longer any mobs left there to spawn. And this works good and bad. On the good side, it means if you're fighting a boss that's just kicking your butt, by the 10th time, you no longer have to worry about the trash between the bonfire and the boss. You can just go ahead, spawn up, put your gear on, and run right to him, zone in, and start to fight him. On the bad side, though, I was telling you about these life shards. That's what they're called. They're called life shards, not human shards. Life shards. I was running out of them. And I was at the point where I was actually using them in the boss fight because I only had 3 Estus flasks. And I was trying to get him, and I'm farming through these guys, and well, the guys I was farming in order to get these life shards were all gone. So I was at this point where I couldn't gain any more healing items, I couldn't kill the boss, I couldn't gain any more souls in order to kill the boss, in order to level up and make myself better. So basically I either had to go to a different zone and try to find that, or I had to just learn the boss and do it with what I had, which is what I eventually did. But it was real frustrating that I couldn't just go out and farm this boss or anything like that, farm these mobs in order to level up and get a few of these items. They've also eliminated most of the unlimited items sold at blacksmiths. For example, the one blacksmith I found has only 10 Titanite shards. Never any. He has. I bought all of them out, and there haven't been any more of them since I bought all 10 of those. So it kind of is like they're trying to force you that you're not going to be able to upgrade everything in one playthrough. Now later on, there might be an item that, and I hope this happens, that will allow you to respawn certain zones in the game, or maybe the entire game, and there might be an item that resupplies blacksmiths and vendors and everything. So far, the only item I found that you can buy unlimited of is the lowest level arrows. So I found 3 different levels of arrows. I'm assuming there's going to be at least 2 more. But I found wooden arrows, I found iron arrows, and I found fire arrows. And like from this one blacksmith, he had unlimited wooden arrows and wooden bolts, but he only had 50 iron, and he had no fire. And once I bought all the iron, I have not seen any more iron come back since. I'm not sure how I feel about this, and again, maybe there will be items that will resupply them. But for right now, I'm just kind of neutral to it. We'll see how it plays out. Alright, I think that's enough. I think I've been a little down on it in this video. Overall, I am very much enjoying the game. I am concerned that the combat needs a little more polish. We will see in time if that's the case. It may just be I need to get more comfortable with it. I hope that's the case. And we'll find out a little more as I play through. I'll probably update again in about a week or so of what I've experienced, the next bosses, and any changes or so. So this has been Paler. Thanks for watching.